welcome along to This Racing Life. Here's what's coming up.
He must have been to 5 festivals already, you know, this will be his 6th.
Yeah.
So just,
He's only 9.
yeah, you know, he's been about forever, but I think there's still good race in him, I'm sure of it.
I remember thinking he was quite reluctant to line up. I ended up very wide on the track and was slowly through the tape on him, but that was the beauty of Newbury. You had 5 fences in a row, so I was able to get him into a position soon after starting.
I suppose when the 2 boys, Buckle, Tom and Timothy, both won at Exeter on the same day, and it wasn't expected, they weren't even favourites.
I achieved sort of so much, for myself, that I feel like I didn't have to prove anything more, and I'm so content in sort of what I managed to do, and I was happy to sort of close the book on it.
It's been a fantastic start to the season for Team Tizzard down in Sherborne. New kid on the block, Lost in Translation, may be the star attraction after his Betfair Chase win, but ignore the older boys at your peril. Native River and Thistlecrack are ready to start their campaigns after providing some of the yard's best days in recent memory.
He's going to go to the Many Clouds at Aintree on the 7th. We were never going to run him until December, and that's the perfect race for him. You know, he although he was still 3rd in the King George last year, that sort of everything's against him. You know, he's certainly a little bit better going left-handed, and it's a fast track, and the ground's normally too dry for him. As he's getting older, he certainly needs a bit of cut in the ground. He's had an entry in a Welsh National as well.
Going back to his roots again.
Well, difficult off a 167. I don't think any horse over 160 has ever won a Welsh National. But if we didn't have him in, then it's where else do you go a little bit over that period. So the main objective is certainly to go to Aintree before Christmas, and we will, with a plan to get to another Gold Cup with him.
Would you like to get a run in the Grand National into him one day?
It's something that we've talked about, and you'd think that he would be suited to that sort of race, the way he jumps and he travels and all that. But it has to be something that everybody is 110% behind. You know, he's at the end of the day, he's Garth and Broom's Gold Cup winner, and if they're not quite sure about it, we won't be doing it, because the horse doesn't have to do it, and that's nothing against the race or anything like that. It's just their sort of personal preference. So it's he's heading for another Gold Cup this year, and it'll be something that's sort of discussed as we go, and how the horse is, and yeah, it's a possibility one day.
He ran no bad race whatsoever in the Gold Cup this year as defending champion. He ran a fair race, didn't he?
Yeah, solid race. I mean, as he's getting older, he's always perhaps lacked that gear. He needs to be very competitive in a Gold Cup. He needs a bit of soft ground. There's no doubt about that. But who's to say it's not going to be soft there?
How's he in himself now going into his next season?
Really good. Really good. We haven't given him a score. We'll give him a score next week. But he's been doing all his work, and Jamie rides him every day, and he's been full of himself. He looks an absolute picture. There's nothing suggesting at home that he's gone. He's also been to 5 festivals already. You know, this will be his 6th.
Yeah.
So just.
He's only 9.
Yeah, you know, he's been about forever. But I think there's still good race in him, I'm sure of it.
And what about Thistlecrack? He hasn't won a race since the King George 2016, but he's only run half a dozen times in nearly 3 years since then, of course. All systems go again for Kempton.
Yes, yeah. His performance in the King George last year was the best performance of any of our horses last year on time form ratings. You know, he was. So that shows what a big run that was. But he's. There's no hiding fact. He's fragile. He's late coming in this year. He went to a pre-training yard, which he's done before. He's going to run in the long-distance hurdle at Newbury, but very much as a preparation for a King George. We want to get a run into him, then head for a King George. You know, King George ticks lots of his boxes. And Scoot came off from absolute buzzing around Exeter the other day. You know, he said he feels as good as always. So we'll try and keep him in one piece, and with the main objective is the King George, and then we'll see how he comes out of that and where we go after, really.
Is he still joint highest rated
horse?
Yeah,
he's 167. Yeah, so he's you know, it's not like you can go and say, "Oh, I'm going to run you in a little poxy little 0 to 130 or something like that. You can't do it. Simple as that. He's too high to go in veterans races or anything like that. So he has to run against the best, and to do that, he has to be trained, fully wound up, because otherwise he's not going to be able to compete in them. So in doing that, you run the risks of his fragility, if it were.
I just want to talk about one of the big races upcoming, which is the Ladbrokes Trophy, part of the Ladbrokes Winter Carnival, of course, now. How's the team looking for this year's renewal?
Well, the team are looking good. You know, we've got Mr. Malarkey, what's second favourite for it. Ticked, end of last season, this was the race we were talking about. He ticks a lot of boxes. Second season chaser, rated about 150, ran really well at Aintree. But he disappointed at Ascot. He came back, he blew hard. Made a couple of silly mistakes, so he's going in there off the back of a disappointing run, which is not ideal. But there's nothing obvious by the fact he blew hard, and perhaps he wasn't as fit as we thought we had him. So he would probably go in there. Elegant Escape will almost certainly go back there. He'll have top weight, but he's a big, strong horse, and he's in that bracket where. Is he quite good enough to be going for a Betfair chase, or should he be trying to carry top weight? And I think he's a big, strong chap that can do it. So the team are good. Robin's fragile but very good on his day, and we've got West Approach left in after finally managing to bag a big one with him. That
must have meant a lot, by the way, to get him to win at Cheltenham.
Yeah, well, it was 16 attempts. I never realised that until afterwards, but. The Snooks are great supporters of ours, have been all throughout, and they're not afraid to have a go. You know, we won the King George with Thistlecrack as a novice. They're not afraid to have a go at having a big pot, and we've certainly done that with West Approach. But it's a matter of time. I've been saying it for 2 years, and it took its time. But the horse deserved it. You know, Thistlecrack's half brother. He's been in the shadows all of his life a little bit. Whether he turns up at the Ladbrokes, I'm not sure. You know, it might be better to freshen him up for a Welsh National.
Can that race, though, the Ladbrokes Trophy last year, sizing Tennessee, I suppose, if I'd have asked you before, and would he have necessarily been the one that you'd have thought if you'd have said you're going to win the race today? No,
definitely not. We thought Elegant Escape going into it, and he finished second in it. Sizing Tennessee had his Gold Cup, you know, and got a touch of a leg in his older horse. Actually, was his last out. He's been retired, so it was his last run. But he wouldn't have been. You know, last year's race, for some reason there was only 13 runners in it, and it just fell apart a little bit. That's not taking anything away from the form, but I think this year it's going to be back to how it normally is, with a full field in ultra competitive.
The Ladbrokes Trophy, or the Hennessy in old money, saw one of the greatest comebacks ever seen in National Hunt history a decade ago. Denman's immense weight-carrying performance will never be forgotten, not least by Ruby Walsh, who spoke to Gary O'Brien.
Oh, it was incredible. The weight he gave to the likes of What a Friend that was runner-up. It was a huge performance. I mean, he'd won his first Hennessy when Sam won him off, I think, a rating of 161. He was well up in the high 170s when he won his second one. It was a phenomenal weight-carrying performance.
And for you, on a personal level, it had been quite some time since your previous win in the race on Strong Flow. It was important to, I'd imagine, for you to get back on the Roll of Honour for one of the marquee prizes. I'd
obviously missed Denman in 07. I had a broken, dislocated shoulder, and Sam Thomas won on him and he absolutely ran away with the race. So I was lucky enough to ride him the next time. He had fallen in Aintree on his previous start at the end of the previous season. He'd been second in the Gold Cup, but he had been probably hadn't been in the same form in 09 as he had been in 08. So it was a big day for Denman as well. And I remember thinking he was quite reluctant to line up. I ended up very wide on the track and was slowly through the tape on him, but that was the beauty of Newbury. He had 5 fences in a row, so I was able to get him into a position soon after starting, and he picked it up, I think, going to the water jump with a circuit to race. I think What a Friend headed him between the last two, but Denman, if he was anything, he was gutsy, and he battled back to win decisively in the end, but it was a huge performance.
And being there on the day, there was a real sense amongst the attendants at Newbury, there was a huge crowd as well, that they had witnessed something special. Did you feel that yourself, the electricity, when you crossed the line?
Oh, I did. You could nearly feel it you could feel it in the parade, the anticipation, the fact that, you know, Paul Barber, Harry Finlay, Paul Nichols had decided to let him run under that, with that rate and under that weight. You know, people were almost, it wasn't the done thing in the modern era. So it was, you know, even to be like to ask him to do it and then for him to go and achieve it was incredible.
2 fences to jump. Denman is taken on by What a Friend. There's a huge weight difference. Denman by about a length. What a Friend challenging in second place. Ruby Walsh and Sam Thomas. A score to be settled. Then Barber's Shop and Niche Market racing towards the final fence. What a Friend is hanging. He looks awkward. Denman still fighting. Over the last good jump again from Denman, and he lands in front on the run for home. Denman pulling out more from What a Friend. He's under 11 stone 12. One of the great performances in jump race history. Denman by 3 legs to What a Friend. Denman is keeping on. Another demolition job from Denman, and he wins his second Hennessy.
While owners will come and go throughout a trainer's career, on occasion you'll find one who's been there before they were famous. Malcolm Hooker has had horses with the Tizzard since the turn of the century and has seen the progression from farmers with a racing interest to leaders of the national hunt game. You're the owner of the Buckhorns, and there have been a fair few of them, haven't there?
Well, just a few, not many, but yeah, we started here with Buckhorn Tom and Buckhorn Timothy, and Buckhorn George. Hopefully he's going to run at Exeter in a couple of weeks.
What do you enjoy most about it?
Breeding horses is great fun, hard work again, but I enjoy the sort of team spirit of it. While I have a small group of owners with me, alongside me, and a day out racing is great fun.
Is it quite a camaraderie then?
Yeah, and we know the trainer and the jockey, and it's all I try and give chances to the young jockeys, and it's all great fun. The team sort of spirit.
So in the days when Joe, obviously for a great time of your ownership, would Joe have ridden your horses back then, and he's now overseeing the training of them?
Oh yeah, very much so. I mean, he's schooled, my wife thinks he's fantastic schooler of horses, and he schooled Tom and Tim. And Tom also rode Tom to win. Then he retired shortly afterwards. But yeah, he was behind the success of Tom and Tim.
It's quite nice also walking around here and you look and there's Lost in Translation, there's Native River, Cue Card was here, Thistlecrack. It's become a bit of a Hollywood boulevard, really, hasn't it, for National Hunt horses?
Yeah, very much so. And people in the wider area can't wait to come up here when he has an open day. And also he's very generous about owners' days, lunch, and it's a superb day.
So you'd thoroughly recommend someone come and do what you do and have a horse here?
Oh yeah, and also they can come and share a horse or get involved with his club, because he has a couple of club courses where people can have smaller shares.
And what's been your best day on a racecourse?
My best day? I suppose when the 2 boys, Buckhorn Tom and Timothy, both won at Exeter on the same day. And it wasn't expected. They weren't even favourites. They were 3rd or 4th favourites. And that was quite something, really. Yeah.
And both of which you'd bred as well?
Yeah.
So to breed them, own them, and then see both of them on the same afternoon
and they're
go
full
win
brothers,
for you.
and they were full brothers. Yeah, it was quite fantastic. In fact, they were full brothers as well. It was fairly unique. I think a couple of flat horses had won on the same day as full brothers, but not many jumpers have. I don't think any have.
While it's always sad to see a jockey hang up their boots, it's always a big relief when they go out on their own terms. Wayne Hutchinson has enjoyed some huge days in the saddle, including as recently as April when Talk Is Cheap took the Bet365 Gold Cup and called time on his career in October.
I've always gone along the lines of, I think, gut feeling's always, you know, a big factor. If your gut's telling you something, I think, you know, generally that's right. I had that feeling. I went and spoke to the boss, you know, and he was totally understandable, and he was fantastic, and sort of said, you know, don't do anything hasty. Yeah. And obviously I knew I needed time anyway, because obviously I didn't want to, you know, sort of look back and have, you know, sort of regret for, you know, for stopping too early. You know, you need to make sure it was right. And I went through a thought process, and and obviously that's what I came to.
But I think if you just said to people in a year's time, this man, through his own choice, will not be riding in a race like this or any other, it would have surprised, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it surprised me really, but at the same time, you know, things change, you know, and the whole outlook changed for whatever reason. I don't know. Like I've said, number of different reasons, and I can't even put my finger on it myself. But you know, sort of, you know, it's fantastic. But for me, I achieved, you know, sort of so much, you know, for myself.
Yeah.
That I feel like I didn't have to prove anything more, and I'm so content in sort of what I've managed to do, and I was happy to sort of close the book on it.
So what is next?
Don't know. I'm definitely going to make good use of this time from now till Christmas to go and see different things, have a look what you might like to do, and certainly what you don't want to do. You know, I've always prided on myself on someone that's, you know, sort of, you know, been 110% in what I do, very loyal person, and what I go into, I want to stick at. I don't want to start jumping, you know, sort of to different things, and that would wreck my head.
What do you think it was about you as a person, Alan as a person, the situation, the personal and professional relationship? What do you think it was that made it click?
I don't know. I just understood him. I understood how he thought, what he was thinking. I don't know. It's strange. I was able just to pick up very early how to deal with him. That Choc was a big help in that as well. Obviously, he was a great mentor, and you know, he helped me understand Alan as well, because obviously he knew him very well from from the Dukes. So, you know, that all helped. But like I said, mainly I had a good understanding of what, you know, when to talk to him and when not to, really. You know, just little things like that. You know, it's just could just tell with him.
Those early, that first decade when you were at Alan King's, obviously the success that him and Choc had at the Cheltenham Festival, the likes of what Voiporus Tedes, My Way to Souls and Catch It, etc. You were obviously riding a load of winners. Haukon Gelolade in the Welsh National springs to mind. But did you ever get to a point where I think I want to go and be the main man effectively somewhere else?
No, it was weird. I did have a couple of offers early doors in my career during that time, but everything seemed as, well, not even a sidestep, it was almost a step back, because back then the number two, you know, I was riding as number two, if you like. It was a job within a job, you know. You were still, God, you'd sort of ride 25 winners, you know, for Alan, and you know, over, you know, somewhere over 100 rides, you know, up to 150 rides a season. So it was a job within a job, and you were riding, you know, good horses on you know, throughout. And also I actually looked at it on the time that I was actually getting the better deal sometimes. Choc would be going to Cheltenham on the Saturday, riding the good horses, but also competing against the best horses. Yeah. I'd go to Doncaster, I'd be riding the good horses, competing against lesser horses. So, you know, I often thought that I was getting the better end of this.
So you go and have trebles at Doncaster and things like that sometimes.
Yeah, which did happen. And so like I say, back then, it was good, and it helped sort of for that transition, you know, when Choc did finish, for me to, you know, to take over.
Were you, because you said you love routine and being organised and so on, when things didn't go right, were you hard on yourself as a jockey?
Yeah, terribly.
Like quite self-critical in the car coming home?
Yeah, terribly, yeah. And that was my biggest downfall, I think I've said before, and probably didn't believe in myself enough, and that's probably a downfall of mine, in the sense that I used to beat myself up an awful lot.
Do you think it's harder for, say, jockeys now? I'm interested to know, because obviously when you began your career, there was no such thing as social media and things like that. Now, towards the end of your career, that came in with a vengeance. And you read all sorts of things about jockeys and so on, trainers, everybody involved in many different industries in any walk of life, suffering on things like that. Would you read things like that, or would you just let it go in one ear and out the other?
I'd have my days where you would. I mean, I'm on social media, but I wouldn't be active as such. Some days you would have a look out of curiosity. Yeah. Another day I wouldn't even bother, you know. But and if I did, it wouldn't get to me, because my outlook on it was, well, he lost his fiver, you know, because he backed you. So, you know, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, and some days some of it would be right. You know, somebody's called you out, and you'd sit in the car and think, yeah, you know, he's got a fair point, you know, but you know, we are not all perfect. But yeah, it happens. But no, I dealt with that side very well. The side I probably didn't deal with very well was me being critical of myself. Yeah. And to be fair,
did that ever get better?
No.
Really?
No. I was never happy. Never happy. You know, you could ride a winner, and I'd watch myself on a replay when I get home. You know, and I'd still be picking holes in myself.
Which horses do you think will always have that extra special place? I mean, in your heart, effectively.
It was Smad for sure. You know, I loved riding him. And interestingly, Carly used to say to me, you know, he was the one horse that she could sit and watch, and she never got butterflies.
Really?
Yeah. She said he was the only horse she could watch racing and feel at ease to watch. But yeah, he was very special to ride. And boulder success. Won 2 Grade 1s on him. You know, and he was a top draw horse.
He was.
Obviously had sort of my saddest day racing on him as well. But you know, those two are the two that sort of stick very fondly in the heart.
So I'm going to miss something. I know I'm going to miss something, but I was having a look at your record on Smad Place last night, and you won on him first time up in this country, 27 lengths in a juvenile hurdle at Newbury.
Yeah.
8 years later, he was winning at Old Roan still, and in between times, he ran in 3 Gold Cups, finished 3rd in 2 Stayers hurdles. You won a Holloway's handicap hurdle with him at Ascot.
Yeah.
Countless other proper races as well. He really took you to just about everywhere, didn't he?
He was. You know, he turned up at every festival. I think 7, 8 festivals he ran at.
And that's of course without mentioning the success of success in the Hennessy.
Yeah.
How can I forget that one?
He was just, you know, he was a phenomenal horse. Great character. You know, resilient. You know, he was everything you wanted a racehorse to be.
Whatever you go on and do, be it in racing, be it out of racing, do you think you'll ever look to sort of, not say fill the void left by riding in the saddle, because you chose to leave the saddle when you did, but do you think you'll ever look to sort of fill your life in that all-consuming way, or will it be a totally different way of looking at things from now on?
I think it'd be a totally different way. You know, in my heart and my mind, you know, I did what I wanted to do, and you experienced it, you rode the waves, and you know, loved every minute of it. But you're happy and content was, you know, you lived a childhood dream, if you like, and accomplished it. So I'm very content in that way, to box ticked and back to Swindon life.
To have the native rivers and the Thistlecracks is important, but perhaps equally vital is having the stock to replace them when their best days are behind them, with novices like Elixir De Nurse and Reserve Tank both grabbing Grade 1 novice races last term. One that I really want to talk about we haven't seen since January is Elixir De Nurse. What has kept him off since then?
He just did a slight tendon injury and then a suspensory injury just before Cheltenham. Took us out of all that, but he's been back in since August. He'll run sometime in December, and the plans to see if we can have a go on a champion hurdle with him.
Which is something his owner, Terry Warner, would be no stranger to.
Well, when we spoke to Terry about the horse hadn't long been back, and we said we better just touch base before we have the owner's open day, is that we're all on the same sort of wavelength. And Terry, what do you think? He went champion hurdle. And we said perfect. That's we think the same. So. Where we start, it's not really been planned yet, but he'll be ready to go in mid to second half of December, and then with the champion hurdle, you'd imagine he'd get a couple of runs into him. It'd be sort of his third race. He'd have to improve a bit, obviously, but he hasn't had an opportunity not to do so, and his form just kept getting better and better and enhanced last year. And I think the only horse who beat him last year was the horse who came second in the Supreme, wasn't it? Yeah, the horse of Ollie Murphy's called
Thomas Darby.
Thomas Darby, yeah. So the form's rock solid. He's a good horse, but you know we're getting him back. We've been patient with him, and like those novices, he's 153, I think. So he's £10 or £15 shy at the moment, but there's nothing to say he can't improve again.
You mentioned to me earlier that obviously Cheltenham, there was no winner this year, but to go straight after Cheltenham, send out a horse in a small field event at Kempton, who then went on to win 2 Grade 1s in the spring in Reserve Tank, must have given you guys a real boost towards the back end of the season.
Yeah, we've done well at Aintree over the years, for a few years now, and Punchestown, you know, and they're kind of not afraid to, as long as they come out of Cheltenham and tell us that they're okay, we'll give them another go. Perhaps the only one that ran poorly at Aintree was Elegant Escape, and he was perhaps showing the effects of a long season. But Reserve Tank 12 months ago was struggling, you know. He had a disappointment run at Newbury, and then we found out he'd ulcers, we treated them, and you know, it was a shock to us that he was just going to get out. Just the progression was unbelievable. But the boys who owned him, they thought he'd run a big race. You know, they thought he had a real good each way chance. We thought he had an each way chance. We wouldn't run him if we thought he had no chance. But didn't think he'd quite finish the season how he had. And then back it up at Punchestown. Then this year he looks every bit as good again. You know, we won't run him in the depths of the winter on really soft ground. I think he wants a bit of decent ground. So we'll just save a bit for hopefully might go to Newbury next weekend, and then if the ground stays good enough for him, and then just have a spring campaign. Was the Rising Stars exactly what you wanted to see from him? Yeah, we've never sent cue card to the Rising Stars or anything like that. So it's our local track, and we wanted to try and support the race quite a bit. And then straight after Chepstow, we went Rising Stars will be ideal, nice track for him. I was up at Aintree, and I just wondered how well he was travelling down the back, and then Robbie gave him a squeeze and he picked up, which is how we love horses to run. You know, you'd rather Robbie said I was always confident every time he squeezed a little bit he picked up. So
he did seem to drop back a little bit, and then he was suddenly back on the
but Robbie said visually you don't know what they've got underneath them, do they? But he was always confident he was going to pick up, and then he did, and then he idled a bit in front, which is. It's a lovely way to run, isn't it? Because he's not wasting any energy. What's he going to be then, in terms of long term, when he becomes the sort of the peak chaser that he's likely or hopefully going to be? What do you think he'll be? Well, I think he'll get further. I think 2.5 probably is minimum at the moment. Well, probably right for this season, but I think you'll probably see him stepped up to 3 at Aintree, similar to what Lost did last year, and then. If he keeps going, then hopefully he'll progress on again. So touch wood, if everything hopefully goes to plan, that they're going to have to go some to match the levels achieved. But the generations to follow after the Native Rivers, etc., the Lost in Translations Reserve Tanks, they might just be waiting in the wings here. Well, hopefully that's the plan. I mean, we're dealing with racehorses. You know, they get injured and things go wrong and they don't quite do it. But at the moment, you know, we're sort of living the dream with them and hoping that they can progress up to that standard, and then and we're always trying to buy the next one. We could go through another hour's worth of horses here, but in terms of those that you'd love to mention now, or ones that are really sort of getting you going, who would be first on the team sheet at this moment? I'm quite excited by a horse called Fiddler on the Roof. How we got him beat the last day, I'm not sure, but he was a real good second behind Time Hill at Chepstow. Chucked him straight in the deep end in the Persian War. And we thought we'd get away with dropping back to 2 miles round Wincanton, and we didn't, you know. But I think the form's pretty good. He's a horse that he's a big, strong horse. Anything's a bonus this year over hurdles, and will be a lovely novice chaser next year. He's the one to follow. I think so, yeah. He's pretty exposed, mind. Well, that's it for this Racing Life, and thank you to all who contributed. We'll see you again next week.